Hi, Vincent, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Great. So, Vincent, we have another 2 minutes. Give me some time. Meanwhile, I'll publish you, okay?
Okay, no problem. Thank you for coming.
Yes. So I will be the show. I will be the moderator for this session. So please let me know if you feel any issue. Okay.
Hey Vincent, Vignesh here. So the next 1 minute people should be joining. So the previous session was
very
over.
good. No problem.
Good to start in a minute.
I hope you guys have a good time.
Yep.
Vignesh, this is Rahul. Do I need to publish? I think it's already published, right? I just need to have a recording started, right?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Hi, Vignesh. Yeah, I think you can start. We have
Yep.
we are on the time. You can start if you're ready, and we'll try to finish the session by 5 minutes before, so that we can have some slots for any question if any participant have. Okay. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any introduction slide about the lucky draws and all this, or I go straight away start my session?
You can just straight away start.
Okay, let me share my screen.
Keynote we spoke about it. Yeah.
Okay, you have my screen?
Yes,
Yep.
it is clear. Yeah.
Okay, let's go. So there is a contest for today's session. So my session code is 45392. So take note of this. For the latecomers, I will also remind them of the code as we move along. So good morning and good afternoon if you're not from India, like me from Malaysia. Okay, and we like to thank the sponsors for supporting this particular event. And let me introduce myself. Okay, my name is Vincent. I'm the senior consultant, right, of IT company in Malaysia, right. So I am MVP from 2014 to 2022, and I like wine, cigars, good food, and I currently reside in KL. So let's start by looking at some notable leaks of 2021. Okay, so one big one is the LinkedIn leak that was released in April. Okay, but not really a leak. Someone went and basically scraped 500 million. Okay, LinkedIn user profiles. Now, what are they going to do with this profile? You want to ask. Of course, one useful thing you can do with this profile is you can actually create spoof emails and scam people, right? Okay. Another, yeah. So anyway, it was a old bit of data, right? Because it was scraped because of a vulnerability that has been fixed in 2019. Okay. Another notable leak this year in February was this COMB, compilation of many breaches. Okay. With 3.2 billion records. So whether you like it or not, I think most of us we will have some credentials that are already leaked and probably contained within this 3.2 billion records. A bit closer to home, we read in March that Malaysia Airlines suffered a personal data compromise. Okay, so their frequent flyer records were actually
Hey
stolen.
Vincent,
Yes, hi.
sorry to cut you. Vignesh, looks like your voice is choppy.
My voice is choppy. Is this better or?
It's still choppy. Yeah, it's breaking a lot.
It's breaking a lot. Let me turn off my mic and try again. Do you get better audio?
Yeah, now it's better. Yeah.
Yeah, it's better. Yeah.
Okay, so I just went through some of the notable leaks, right? Closer to home, right? Malaysia Airlines announced that they basically suffered a data leak, and it wasn't actually Malaysia Airlines' fault. It was actually, right, the agency that was handling the frequent flyer program for them, and that was a company called SITA. Okay, and as you might have guessed, it didn't only affect Malaysian Airlines. It also affected Air India, and I was reading through some of India's papers. It was actually quite a big thing, at least in the India media. So I'm not sure what is the situation on the ground. Okay, so by attacking a subcontractor, they actually got hold of both in Air India and also Malaysia Airlines customer data. So what happens when airline gets hacked and the information gets leaked? So in 2018, right, Cathay Pacific had a similar data breach with 9.4 million passengers' data stolen. So what happened was just a few days after Cathay Pacific announced the breach. Okay, the breach happened way back, but I think Cathay Pacific was trying to figure out how to handle the fallout, so they didn't actually make it public until many months later. So in October 2018, when they actually publicly announced that they had data breach, within a few days, okay, phishing attempts began. So what happened is, so this is myself, right? I received an email from Cathay Pacific, right? And basically that said some important information about your personal data. So essentially they say, hey, your data has been stolen, right? But don't worry, we are monitoring it for you, and we have provided a free data scanning service if you are worried that your data might be stolen, right? Please click on this link to get a free 1-year subscription to this free scanning service. Of course, if you click on this scanning service, they will ask you for your email, your password, challenge question, and they will ask you like, okay, what would you like me to check? Would you like me to check your passport number? Then please supply me your passport number, right? If you'd like me to check your credit card number, please supply me your credit card number, right? Well, thankfully, this email is real. But how do you tell that is even fake or real? And that's where, right, as a member of the public, we do have a dilemma. So email impersonation is actually not very difficult. So I'm going to use very simple, basic, even probably my mother can do it, example to give you an idea, right? So I'm going to stop my presentation, right? And I'm going to switch to my browser and I'll show you. Okay, so this is mk.cz. So it's a fake mail simulator. It's available online, right? No rocket science, no dark web, right? So I'm going to pretend to be this person. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. Shihana Chauhan or something like this, right? Apparently, she is the CEO of a very big drinks company of India, right? Parley Agro. Okay, so I'm going to pretend to be her, and I'm going to send an email to myself, right? And in that email, I will say that, dear Vincent, we are pleased to inform you we have chosen you to deliver 4,000 licenses for Microsoft 365. Hey, I just won, right, a tender. Okay, please contact my assistant. I just pull some name, right, for more information. Obviously, if this is a scam, right, then Vika would probably carry me on to stage 2 of the scam, right? So let me show you my Gmail inbox, right? Obviously, I tested it, right, to make sure I can receive it, but I'm going to do it live, right? And I'm going to say, this one, right? And I'll say send. Oh, What good timing. Okay, we do it again, no problem. Okay. Okay. Right. Let me just pull text here. Okay, so the reason why I pre-prepare the text, because sometimes if you write it, if your email is too spammy, okay, Gmail actually does filter it as spam. Okay, but I've tested the wording of this business compromise email, and I found that it passes. Okay, it went out. And let's see whether we get the email. Oh, look, I just got an email from the CEO of Pali Agro. And if you go in, you can see that it is actually from her. Okay, but the Google browser does warn you, right? There is a question mark here, right? It says that just double check if that mail is authenticated, right? But I don't think many people actually bother about that. So we have just spoofed the CEO, right, of one of the large, right, drink manufacturers out of India, and it is that easy, right? So no rocket science about this. Okay, obviously we received that email, right? I showed you this because in case the simulator didn't work. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about spoof prevention using sender authentication. That means you can actually prevent this kind of thing from happening. So let's pretend I'm a hacker, okay, and I say I want to attack my victim. The first question I will ask is, can I spoof their email? It's actually quite easy to find out, right? What you do is you check their email domain. There are a number of checkers that's out there, right? You can use MX Toolbox, you can use DMARC, okay? And basically, when we check Parley Agro, we found that they have a SPF record, but they did not have a DKIM record and they don't have a DMARC record. Once you see this, you know that the email domain is actually vulnerable. Okay, so perfect. So what we'll do is we'll write a fake business email, right? We can actually buy a database. If we don't have that database, we can actually try and buy it from the dark web, or you can use Google, right? Like I did, and you can actually send a fake email to the victim. Now, why is Gmail unable, in my case, why was Gmail unable to filter out that the email is fake? Well, because it was filled with business content, and somehow, right, Google didn't flag mk.cz, the app that I was sending an email out from, as a bad sender, right? So it's business content, right? The sender looks okay. What am I going to do, right? On what basis, right? Do I flag that particular email, right? Okay. Yeah, I see a question. I'll take a break later and I'll answer that. So how do you tell that the email is actually fake? It's very difficult, right? So, and let's say if I'm the attacker and says attacking the company is too much of an effort, right? Because IT put a lot of security here, right? Okay, never mind. Then what I'll do, I will attack faking the domain name, right? I will attack their suppliers, their customers, the general public, who have weaker security. And once I have penetrated, okay, the supplier, and then I will, through the supplier, right, hit the company back in return. Okay, so there's a lot of things that we can do. So in the case of Sita, all right, they didn't even bother about the airlines, right? They just went after Sita, and basically by going after Sita, they managed to get the name, the credit cards, the date of birth, contact, passport, and Star Alliance data, at least out of Air India. Now, I try to look up what happened to that data? Right now, I can't find that information on the internet. So maybe the hackers are still keeping the data either for their own phishing attempts, or they are intending to sell it at a later date, right? We don't know. Okay, right. So if you have a look at CETA, CETA has an CETA.arrow, right? It's their domain name, and they do have a MS record. Okay, so this is their mail host. Okay. Right, but if you do a check on the DKIM, SPF, and DMARC, you'll find that they have no DMARC record. Even 2 days ago, when I was double checking my presentation data, right, there was no DMARC record for CETA error. So today, if like now live, if we want to simulate, right, a hacking attempt on or phishing attempt on CETA error, we will be successful. Okay, because they have not published a DMARC record. Okay, and I actually did it, right? So see, so I just gave myself an order of 10,000 Microsoft licenses, right? Impersonating the CETA CEO. So yes, that is basically the problem. Now there was a question. Let me see whether let's see, check. Okay, for organizations that do not have SPF DMARC not configured, what would you advise to stage roll this out to prevent any email disruption while this change is being applied? Okay, remind me again if I didn't cover this. I think it would be better for the rest of the audience if I explain this first, right? And then I'll talk a little bit about the rollout. Okay, so how can we help anti-spam system make better decisions, right? So when an anti-spam system receives an email, how can we tell whether that email is real or fake? So the way we do it is we insert certain information into the domain's DNS, okay? So that, right, the anti-spam system can look up and they can make better decisions based on that information. So the 3 records that we insert in the domain. So for example, if I want to protect CETA.arrow, okay, or I want to protect Party Agro, okay, I would insert 3 records into their domain name: SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. So SPF basically tells the whole world who are the email services that can send mail for you. So for example, if you have used Office 365, you have set up Office 365, you will know that one of the requirement, right, of setting up a Office 365 account is putting in an SPF record that basically says that, right, your mail provider is, okay, Microsoft. So once you have an SPF record, for example, and you declare that Microsoft is your mail provider, if there's any mail that came from, let's say, a China mail server or a Russian mail server, right, then you will know that something is not right. So you will result in a SPF fail condition, right? DKIM is used to check if mail was modified in transit, okay? And DMARC performs additional checks, right? And also allows you to set certain policies, like if you receive any suspicious mail from my domain, quarantine, reject, or pass it, and then send me a report after you process the mail, right? So these are the 3 records that you set in your domain. Okay, this is what it looks like. So if you are using Office 365, right, you will be asked to insert this record into your SPF. Okay, so if anybody has set up your own Office 365 account before, you will know that you have to do this, right? And this is the DKIM record for my company, right, Fidelis, right? This is the DKIM record for Office 365. If you're using Google Mail or some other mail, right, then the DKIM record is different. But this is the DKIM record for Office 365. And the last one is the DMARC record. Okay, so this is what it looks like. If you do sender authentication and you have inserted these 3 pieces of information into your into your domain, okay, your DNS of your domain, your DNS, right? Then the receiving side will have one more piece of defense, right, that they can use to authenticate a mail. So when the recipient anti-spam system receives a mail, first it will do sender authentication. That means who are their sending servers? What sending servers are they using, right? Did it come from those servers? Was it modified in transit, right? Is there a DMARC policy? Okay, and after we process it, who do we send a report to? Okay, and then we will look at whether, right, it is spammy content or it's business content or you know, right, and we also check whether the servers, the sending services have a good reputation. So you just increase the arsenal, right, of the anti-spam systems if you set up SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. Okay, and this is how Microsoft EOP processes mail. So I took it from a Microsoft website, right? So again, they check, right, sender authentication before it does a reputation check, and it does other checks. So it is quite high on their security agenda. Okay, what does SPF do, right? So let's do a little bit of a deeper dive. And then later we talk about DKIM, we'll talk about DMARC. Okay, 320. So let's say I have already inserted my SPF record into my DNS, and I declare that Office 365 is my sending server. Okay. So let's say the hacker is using a mail service out of Russia, and he attacks the victim. Okay. When the victim receives the mail, okay, his anti-spam system will actually do a reverse DNS lookup, and he finds that, hey, Contoso is using Office 365, right? But this mail, supposedly from Contoso, is coming out from mailserver.ru. So there is a mismatch of the authorized sender, and in such a case, SPF will fail, right? And depending on the setting, right, of the victim's anti-spam, right, he may pass, he may quarantine, or they may reject the mail. Okay. There's a question. If a customer is having third-party security gateway and email coming from any external domain which shows the recipient email gateway IP as sender, wow, sender is not. That's quite long. Can I digest it a little bit later, right? Right, customer is having third-party email security gateway and email is coming in from external domain which shows the recipient gateway. Yeah, sometimes that's I need to digest your mail, but sometimes that is sometimes an issue, because if you use a third-party gateway, right, then the third-party gateway has to handle this anti-spam authentication. Now your Office 365 is handicapped, right, because it sees that the mail is coming from the third-party gateway. It doesn't see where else the mail is coming from, right? Yeah, but in detail, I need to digest your message. Okay, so to correctly create a SPF record, okay, so there are some caveats you have to be careful, right? Ensure that you know all your email sending services and declare them. So there was an earlier question, like if we want to implement this, how do we stage it? So the first thing that you must know and you need to find out, right, is that you need to know all your email sending services. So for a large organization, sometimes you might not know, because the marketing department might have outsourced, right, some marketing activities, and there is a marketing agency that is actually impersonating, right, impersonating your mail, and as IT, you are not aware because it's a third-party agency. Now, syntax issues can cause SPF to be invalid. So sometimes you might think that you have declared the SPF record, but sometimes you didn't do it correctly. Okay, and sometimes if the SPF field is too long, it may cause DNS lookups to fail. Yes, of course, there's a tool we can recommend. Right, stay on. Okay, so setting up our SPF default in Office 365. So for example, there's a local retailer that we like to buy stuff online from Lazada, right? So this is his SPF record, okay? So you can find that he has his staff mail is using Ali Yun, which is Alibaba. Okay, so and Lazada is a subsidiary of Alibaba, so it's quite natural that they would use that. Okay, so what happens when you impersonate email system that's declared their SPF? So this is done by my colleague Johnny. He's a HackQ, and he basically impersonated Lazada. If you look at your email headers, okay, you will find this error message: SPF fail. Okay, no reply support. Lazada.com does not designate our faking server. Oops, sorry, our faking server as a permitted sender. Right, so essentially that's what happens right at the back. Okay, so the second thing that we want to talk about is DKIM. So first, if you set sender authentication, and you will know whether this particular coming piece of mail came from authorized servers. So the next thing you want to know is, okay, I have received the mail, but has the mail been modified? Maybe the bank account has been changed, right? Or the contact email has been changed, right? So essentially, company.real sends out an email, okay? So it got intercepted along the way. Depends on which piece of equipment got hacked or compromised, okay? And basically, the bank account was changed from acme.uk to acme.bvi. Okay, and the recipient actually gets the fake email or the email that's been modified. And if you actually turn on DKIM, it will result in a DKIM fail because the mail was modified in transit. Okay, so how does DKIM work? So you have an email. Your email server will generate a hash, okay, of that email. And using a private key, he will encrypt that hash. And therefore now you have a DKIM signature. So DKIM signature together with the original email, right, will be sent. So of course, the recipient will receive the original email and also the DKIM signature, which was generated from the original email. So the recipient anti-spam will basically take that DKIM signature and try to decrypt it using the public key, the DKIM public key that you have provided in your DNS. Okay, so once he managed to get that, right, he will generate the hash and he will compare against the hash of the email that has been received. Now, if they don't match, then you have a DKIM failure. Now that's just for simple understanding. Okay, or if you can't figure this out, just remember that, right, DKIM prevents your mail from being modified in transit. Okay, so let's talk about the last piece, right? And we are at 327, DMARC. DMARC performs additional checks and allows you to set policy and allows you to receive a report. Okay, three things. Okay, so the DMARC record looks like this. Oops, right? At the last line on the slide. You have a policy, right? Whether your policy is to reject or to quarantine or have none. Okay, don't do anything. You apply to a percentage of the mail. Usually we say at 100%, right? And where to send the process reports. So this is actually Microsoft's DMARC. If you check Microsoft.com DMARC, you will get this, and they are sending their records to Agari for processing. So DMARC checks for domain alignment. That means the from field in your email, right at the bottom, the from field must align with the sending server and must align with the DKIM server. Yeah, the percentage, there's a question on what's the percentage. That means whether the system does a sampling or the system actually scans all the email, right? Reason why I'm not exactly sure. So usually I'll tell my customers, right, just apply 100%. Okay, so that means if you actually have an email that that the from field is not the same as the sending server and it's not the same as the DKIM server, right? Then DMARC will fail. Okay. So you've seen the syntax, right? P equal reject, percentage is like apply to what percentage of the emails. You can probably Google it, right? Usually we set it to 100%. Okay, you can probably Google it on what's the logic or why you want to apply it to less emails. Okay, so these are the settings, right? Reject, percentage, where to send aggregate reports and where to send forensic reports. Okay, these are the main ones. There are a lot of other triggers you can have, but this is not the platform to discuss this, right? Okay, so in summary, we send an email. Okay, the anti-spam checks for SPF, the anti-spam checks for DKIM, right, and the anti-spam checks for DMARC, right, and it will see whether it passes or fails these three policies, right? Now, if it fails, what action do we take? Do nothing, quarantine or reject, and also send out the DMARC reports to the designated email addresses. Okay, so this is what a DMARC report looks like. This is a RUA. This is an aggregate report. Aggregate report basically says, you know, things like, okay, who is the sender, right? Did DKIM pass? Did SPF pass? Did DMARC pass? Okay, so just top level information. But as you can see, it's impossible to read. Seldom we get forensic reports today. Forensic reports give you an idea what the content of the email is really about. And due to privacy reasons, a lot of email processing engines do not send forensic reports today. So mainly we are looking at aggregate reports. Okay, so there's a question. Is it individual checks of SPF, DKIM, or DMARC, or does all services have to fail for email to be dropped or rejected, or is one service fail enough to drop the email? You can specify. That is one of the triggers, right? That means to pass, do you need both to fail, or do you need one to fail, right? Before it's considered, you know, a DMARC fail. You have a choice. Okay, so since the DMARC reports are hard to read, it is better to send them to a reporting tool. So I'll give you an example. Okay, right. This is Cathay Pacific. Now, Cathay Pacific sends their report to this particular this particular email address. Okay. Now, unless they are processing this from this mailbox, it's going to be very hard to read the reports. So my gut feel is Cathay Pacific is not reading the DMARC reports. On top of that, right, they set a policy of none. Okay, that means that even if right the email that I receive from Cathay Pacific, even if the email that I receive from Cathay Pacific is suspicious, please don't take any action. Okay, and at the same time, right, send this report to a mailbox which I suspect is not being monitored. Okay, right? Whereas look at this one below, right? It's being sent to maildefense@proofpoint.com, and there is a separate email address, right, for each. So you have a much better suspicion, right, that this particular DMARC is being monitored. You can tell the difference, but still this is bad because, right, take no action. P equals none. So there was a question about, is there a tool that we can use, right? One very good one that I really like, right, is actually the Martian. Okay, so this is for Fidelis, right? If you have a look, I'll give you a closer look in the next two slides, right? It has a very nice dashboard. It tells me that, oh, I'm generally green, right? I don't have threats or any unknowns, and I have quite a number of domains that I'm currently protecting, and it's all green. Okay, So this is a more detailed look. Oh, in fact, I do have 7 threats and unknowns, right, over the last 7 days. Okay, and of course you can drill down and see what those are. And you can see that I do have actually a number of domains that I am guarding, right? So some of the domains don't send mail, and I don't want an impersonator, right, to contact, right, the public, right, and faking emails to the public, right, for AOS KL or Dropbox KL, right? So I actually declare, right, a DMARC record for these domains, and also a SPF record that tells the whole world that these domains don't send mail. Okay, and if you actually receive any mail, right, from aoskl.com19.com, it's fake, and please reject them. Okay, now for Fidelis Asia, right, we set it to none. We want to see what happens, all right? Okay, fidelis.com.my. This was an old picture. We have already set it to quarantine, okay, because we were running a mail blast the other time, and we were impersonating fidelis.com.my, so we temporarily set it to p equals none to enable that the registered impersonation to go through. Okay, so you have an idea what a tool tells you. Okay. So the tool also warns you, for example, right, that you might actually be subject to a spoofing attack. So for example, if you look at this below, right, okay, there were some spoofing mails that got reported. That means the anti-spam system processed the mail, right, and they basically send back a report to tell us we process your email, right, but we suspect it's an impersonation, right, and the reason why we suspect it's an impersonation is because the report came back and say non-existent domain, right? So essentially what someone did was he created a mail server, right, and he used the mail server to fake my email domain, and this email service that is using doesn't even belong to a registered domain. He didn't even bother, right, to buy a domain or to use somebody's domain, right, to send the email. So it came from a mail server that doesn't even belong to an existing domain. So most likely it's very, very highly suspicious. Hey, we are at 3:36. So as a closer look, you can see, right? There's a mail server from the US, and there's the sender is from China, okay? And he was impersonating aoskl.org. And you can see that DKIM fail, right? SPF fail, right? Yep. As a recap, 3 things you need to set in a DNS. Okay, SPF, who is the authorized sending service. DKIM, make sure the mail is not modified in transit. And DMARC, they do additional checks, right? And what to do if the receiver gets a spoof mail, and where do you want to send a report? Okay, if you do all these 3 things, it will help the anti-spam service, because right when he receives a mail, does it look like a spoof? And then it will check for sender authentication. That means SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. So some sample DMARCs, right? Citibank.com. You see Citibank has a reject policy, and he sends their reports to agari.com, same as Microsoft. eBay also uses Agari, okay, and also has a policy of reject. Grab, our Malaysia ride-hailing service, okay, quarantine 100%, and it sends to this postmark app.com. Okay, now if you set your DMARC to P equals quarantine, what happens is it would actually go into the spam folder. If you say to reject, it doesn't happen at all. Now, this is bad, right? CathayPacific.com, because policy equals none compared to Citibank or eBay. That means if you receive, right, if I send a fake mail and impersonate Cathay Pacific, you will receive it, right? Because the instruction is do nothing. Okay, and Cathay Pacific probably doesn't know it if they do not monitor, right, their DMARC emails. Sometimes you will get a DMARC like this, P equals none, right? Why? Because right? Person advising the customer doesn't know DMARC well, number one. Oh, we have a DMARC record. Yes, you do have a DMARC record, but the DMARC record doesn't protect you, okay? But needs to be DMARC compliant. The other reason is because of marketing, okay? See, if you actually use a service called Active Campaign, right? They actually tell you to do this. They actually tell you to do this. So I think this is not nice and not quite responsible, right? That means it's basically it tells the Active Campaign customers that if you want to use our service, please turn off your impersonation protection, okay, so that we can impersonate you. And the problem is quite serious, okay? I did this in February, and you find that, right, 70% of I think these are Fortune 500 companies, right? Fortune 500 companies, over 70% of them either have a DMARC error or have not implemented DMARC at all. So it doesn't protect them. So they are easy to impersonate. Okay, so there are certain common mistakes for DMARC. Number one, you have no DMARC. Number two, okay, you have a DMARC, but it's not protecting you. Okay, you set a policy as P equal none, right? And you send it to a general mailbox which you don't monitor, right? Why? Okay, why do you set P equal 0 or P equal none, not 0? Okay, my mistake. Do nothing, I'm monitoring only, no protection. Not sending reports to analysis tool, you won't know what is happening. Okay, we have a lot of questions from Sandy, right? We have an issue where we are not able to apply. I think we have to take this all off separately because I need to process your question, right? I need to digest your question. Unless the question is a little bit simpler that I don't have to sort of think about it, right? Okay, so maybe I'll share my email with you and maybe I can work with you after this. Okay, so final words. To implement sender authentication, right? Protect your customer suppliers, internal staff, or the general public. Implement SPF properly, implement DKIM properly, right? Implement DMARC P equals reject and monitor with the tool. Be careful, right? Sometimes you need to do registered impersonations, right? And you need to deal with that as well, right? So get advice from experts if you're not sure. Okay, sometimes the impersonation is very basic. They might use a Yahoo account or a Gmail account, right, to generate fake emails. In that case, right, this is not going to protect you, right, because it protects the more sophisticated attacks, but it doesn't protect you against a very simple low-level attacks. In that case, right, you need to train your people to recognize fake emails, right? So you implement security awareness testing and training to your staff to recognize, right, very obvious spoofs. Okay, right? Because not all spoof mails impersonate your domain, right? So you can have a fake email from Yahoo, and if you don't see who is sending it, right, you can be fooled. So that essentially ends my presentation deck, right? So my session code is 45392. Now there was a question, right, that was asked, how do we do this? It's very good question, right? Let's see. Might be from Sandy, right? Okay, so the way to do it is that you set up a DMARC record with P equals none. Okay, with P equals none. That's the first thing, right? That means we implement DMARC, but we take no action. Because if you take action, you are going to, I mean, if you do it wrong, then your mail flow is going to be affected. So you take P equal none, and you generate reports. And you get a tool to monitor the reports. So for example, this, right? This is the margin. Okay, so what you do is you set P equals none, and you monitor it for a month. So at the end of the month, what you do is you go and into detail viewer. Okay, and you see basically what has been picked up. So for my domain, for example, for a 1 month period from August for the month of August, we find that my domain only has Office 365 traffic. So it's clean, right? But we detected other impersonation attempts, okay? Okay, and we drill down and we see that there were 2 domains that were impersonating us, right? One is isodium.net, right? And one is leopard.com. Now, what I would do in such a case, then I would basically check with my internal departments and say, okay, is anybody using a server called isodium.net, right? Or if it's an IP, right, then this particular IP address, right, to send out mails without IT's knowledge. Okay, so if someone comes back and says that, oh, Isodium is actually our ERP or SAP server and is sending out reports to our customers, fine. Then what we will do is then we will add this particular sending service to our SPF, right? Because they are a legitimate sender. Okay. Now, if they come back and say, nope, none of them we are using, right? Then you know that these are threats. They are actually non-authorized impersonation attempts. So the whole idea, right, is that you have a ramp-up period of usually 3 months, maybe 6 months. It depends how complex is the environment, right? You want to flag out all the legitimate sending services that you may not be aware of. Once you're fairly confident that there are no legitimate sending services that has not been declared into your SPF, right? And if you go back and look at your domain overview and you do not see any errors in your DMARC record, your SPF record, or your DKIM records, then you can probably set a more aggressive DMARC policy. So I hope that answered the earlier question. After implementation of DMARC, is it going to apply the policy on existing emails or just the new emails? Of course, it's only going to apply to the new email. Okay, so you must remember when you set SPF, DKIM, and DMARC in your domain, it protects the other people. And of course, it protects you as well because the impersonation attack can be on your own company, right? So it's once you have set your own SPF, DKIM, and DMARC records, when somebody impersonates your domain and sends out a mail, okay, whoever receives it then is able to counter check your DNS to see, okay, who is the authorized sender? Has it been modified? And if there's something wrong, what should I do? Should I reject it? Should I quarantine it? Or should I take no action and just pass it along because you are still testing? Okay, so maybe I answered that particular question. Okay, so there's another question, all right? Most organizations don't configure SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. So well, if your company is big enough, you can ask your suppliers or to actually do that for your protection. I mean, if you are big enough, if not, you can always suggest that to the IT, right? Of your regular, I mean the companies that your firm regularly does business with. So we are at 3:48, more or less almost at time. Any other questions that you have that I can help answer? If not,
Vincent, I
yes.
think we have a couple of questions in chat. Probably.
Yeah, I was looking at the chat. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, you can have a look and probably you can answer. We have around 10 minutes before we end up the session.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so the Sandy, the first question, for organizations that do not have SPF DMARC, right, configured, what would you advise to stage roll this out, okay, to prevent email disruption? Sandy, did I answer that particular question for you? Is there a Microsoft service or replacement for DMARC? Microsoft currently doesn't have a DMARC reporting app, so the answer is no. Okay. There are a number of tools, but I like DMARC because DMARC is actually quite cheap. Okay. What is the cost involved for implementing DKIM and DMARC? The answer, right, is DMARC, SPF, DKIM, and DMARC are actually international standards, right? Implementing them actually does not incur any cost in terms of, yeah, you just go to your, if you know what you are doing, if you know what you're doing, you can just go to your DNS and you can actually just put it in. Okay, if you know what you're doing. So that being said, if you do not know what you're doing, then there might be some professional services, right, that you pay to somebody, okay, to help you set it up. Okay, so that's the first one. The next thing that you might want to invest on, right, is a reporting tool like this. When about 4 or 5 years ago, when I was first asked by my customer to help them with this, which I have absolutely no clue, right? So I started reading up on this. I found that Agari, it's very, very, very expensive. Okay, it's probably 100,000 US and up, right? Whereas the Martian, okay, is you have a free tier, right? For very small customers, right? Monitoring up to 2 active domains and 10,000 external messages a month. It's free. Okay. And if it's basic, right? It's about 240 US dollars a year. Okay. This is $20 a month. Okay, for a yearly subscription, right? You can monitor up to 2 active domains and 100,000 capable messages, right? So I have larger enterprises customers who are paying 2,400 US dollars, right? Which can monitor up to 8 active domains, a million DMARC records, right? So I use this because it's affordable, right? There's also guys like MX Toolbox that also has a tool, right? I know Barracuda also monitors this for you. You saw from my examples, some customers use Proofpoint. Okay, so there's a question whether we should use the margin or the mark analyzer, which is better. Well, I didn't copy. I mean, I didn't compare, right? I didn't compare them, but we use the margin. So the second piece of cost that you might incur, right, is this, right? Getting the reporting tool. Now, for my larger customers, what I will do is we will also tag on, which is probably about 3,000 US dollars a year, okay, depending on the complexity. We will also tag on, right, so-called a quarterly reporting service. That means we will look at the reports for the last 3 months, we'll analyze it, and we'll give you advice, right? Whether right, certain domains are being impersonated, you have certain errors that you need fixing, and then you can, if you have questions, you can always ask. So the standard itself is free. Okay, is the surrounding services that you might need to pay a little bit of money. Okay, so there's a question on the session code, right? And you might want to have further questions, just drop me an email, right? This is the session code. My email is the red on top. Okay, I think we have 2 more minutes or 3 minutes. Anybody else have some final question, 1 or 2? Yep. If not, thank you. If any of you know Pali Agro, please tell them to fix this, right? Because they are, I believe, quite reputable and they are very public as well. Okay. Thank you everybody for joining. Hope I have helped you a little bit in this.
Thank you, Vincent. Thanks for your time. It was really very helpful and very good session. Once again, thank you so much for this kind note.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.